By the time the late 70s rolled around, the Montreal Canadiens' last dynasty was starting to fade. By 1978, there was cracks in the wall. They were pushed to 6 games in the Stanley Cup Final by Boston. But we also remember that Montreal was trying to rebuild by reaching out to certain WHA players. Mark Napier, Cam Connor, Rod Langway. A lot of available draft picks. And this player got kind of caught in the shuffle. A lot of people said with the new GM maybe he's going to leave. And he left, but in unforeseen circumstances. Now today we're going to be talking about the weird case of the 1978 NHL Waiver Draft, where the Montreal Canadiens said goodbye to Pierre Bouchard, but thought they were going to get him back, but it didn't work out. Now, the fallout from that waiver draft would make this one of the most interesting developments in league politics. Montreal Canadiens history and relations between the NHL and the NHLPA in the late 1970s. Now, we're taking this information from a very important article on the historicalhockey.blogspot.com. Check out the page, quite interesting. Now, as it worked out in the waiver draft that year, there was 5 players taken. The New York Rangers in round 2 took a Montreal Canadiens prospect called Mike Corney, with Dan Newman was dropped from the protected list. And then the first round, Jim Lorentz was taken by Detroit from the Sabres. Pierre Plante, a very talented player, taken by the Rangers from the Red Wings. He helped the Rangers make the Stanley Cup Finals in '79. Larry Giroux, very underrated player, was taken by St. Louis from Detroit. And get this, ladies and gentlemen, multiple-time Stanley Cup champion Pierre Bouchard was picked by, of all teams, the Washington Capitals for the Montreal Canadiens for a low price of $2,500. Now, although only 5 players were chosen, 2 more than 77, this draft took over 2 hours to complete on October 9, 78. Why did it take so long, you ask? The Montreal Canadiens. First, the Canucks tried to claim Cam Connor from the Habs. Connor had played the WHA and never signed a contract in the NHL with the Canadiens, even though they owned their draft rights. The Canucks reasoned that given he had completed 4 years of pro hockey in the WHA and was not on the Canadiens protected list, he should have been eligible for selection. The Canucks' move to acquire Connor was deliberated over the conference call and rejected on the basis that Connor was not even on the Canadiens reserve list, had never signed an NHL contract, and was therefore an unsigned draft choice and eligible for selection. The Rockies pulled the same move as the Canucks, claiming Mark Napier from the Habs. Again, despite the fact that Napier had played in WHA for 3 years and had never signed an NHL contract, so in the eyes of the league and under the terms of the waiver draft bylaw had never played professionally. He was an unsigned amateur draft pool choice, just like Connor, ineligible for selection. Now, despite the fact both Connor and Napier had attended the Canadiens training camp in '78, and it was a foregone conclusion they would play for the Habs in '79, the fact they hadn't signed with the Canadiens was a formality, as the Canucks and Rockies protested that the Canadiens were deliberately evading the rules of the waiver draft. Now, more controversy erupted with the North Stars, who have normally had the first overall pick due to having finishing last in '78, as they were moved to last in the selection order as a condition of the merger with the Cleveland Barons. Tried to claim the Habs Bill Nyrop, who at the time, if I'm not mistaken, was nearing retirement. Nyrop grew up in Minnesota, married a girl from Minnesota in August of '78, and abruptly left Canadiens training camp in September to move back home. Nyrop was suspended by the league at the Canadiens' behest for failing to report back to training camp. The Canadiens were then accused of again trying to evade the rules and use every loophole at their disposal. Nyrop, who had won a few cups in Montreal, was eventually traded to the North Stars in 1980. The most controversial outcome of the draft wouldn't come until days later. The Caps used their first overall choice, again to pick perennial number 6 defenseman Pierre Bouchard of the Habs. The Canadiens didn't have room to protect all their veteran players, so the new GM, Irving Grundman, not the smartest tool in the shed, and the successor to legendary GM Sam Pollock, left Bouchard exposed and made a backroom deal with the Capitals. If the Capitals chose Bouchard with the first overall pick and traded him back to the Habs later, the Canadiens would give the Capitals Rod Schutt, a former first-round amateur draft pick who had played 2 good seasons with the AHL's affiliate, the Nova Scotia Voyageurs. Now, Schutt eventually found his way to Pittsburgh, not to give away the story. Now, October 10th, the day after the draft, they made a trade. Bouchard from the Capitals back to the Canadiens for Schutt. However, the next day, league president John Ziegler voided the deal and cited the league's bylaws. Bouchard could not be traded to the Canadiens or anyone else without having cleared waivers. Grundman and Capitals GM Max McNabb misread the rules. The following Monday, October 16th, the Canadiens and Capitals appealed to the Board of Governors to have the waiver draft bylaw rewritten to allow the trade. The appeal was unsuccessful, and Bouchard remained with the Capitals. Now, Bouchard had a long legacy with Montreal, as he was the son of former Canadiens captain, the Hockey Hall of Famer Emile Bouchard, and had no interest in playing hockey for any other team. Rather than report to Washington, he quit altogether, although he did come back to skate for Washington for 1 game in '79 and have had a few extra seasons. He did announce his retirement, which drew shockwaves throughout the NHL because a player in his pretty well like prime, like Bouchard was, still had demand. Now, it was Irv Grundman's first gaffe, first of many, as general manager of the Canadiens. So we tell this as a cautionary tale. You don't go from the great Sam Pollock to someone who was more, a business leader like Grundman. He didn't really know what he was doing because he could have easily kept Bouchard, but, you got to read the rules, eh? Now, this was a request from one of our listeners, and we want to just tell everybody who's listening out there, the late 1970s was a weird time for the NHL. You had teams being merged, your teams that were losing money, teams that were changing, California went to Cleveland went to Minnesota. There was talk of at least 6 teams having financial problems. You had the end of the Goon era, but you had the new dynasty of the Montreal Canadiens, where some people were turning against the league because Montreal was winning every year in a very dominant fashion. So there was no parity yet. There was maybe 6 teams that were in the Cup run, and of course Toronto was one of them. Boston, Philadelphia, the Islanders, Montreal too as well. The Rangers in '79. So the future dynasty of the Islanders was again a couple of years away. The Flyers were still again perennial contenders. Chicago was out of the mix. Detroit was out of the mix. Boston was there, but like I said, losing to Montreal every year. And the disparity of the divisions. You look at Montreal's division at the time. You weren't play. It was like you were a number 1 seed. It was a bunch of number 5s rather than a 1, 2, 3, 4 of strength. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing with our vintage podcast here, give us a like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget, Pierre Bouchard did quit, and he came back because you get paid good money to play hockey, but that's why he came back. Well, I've never asked him because I've never interviewed him. But if you know why Pierre Bouchard did decide to come back, let me know. Have a good day. Bye.